Warhammer The Horus Heresy, Eidolon The Auric Hammer by Mark Collins. Chapter 12, Sin and Punishment. The city died around him, screaming its last agonies into the smoke-dark sky. Eidolon was no stranger to this. It had been as natural to him as breathing, even before the great infamy of Istvan, before the pitched battles in the ruins of the Coral City and the dropsite massacre that had followed upon Istvan V. He had long since become inured to atrocity, the name of a greater goal. The war had become total, as perhaps it had always been fated to. Distant towers burned and toppled, while around him the slab-sided warhabs of the Tatrakalans had been prized open and broken. Great sheets of white stone had slid in mock landslides, crushing those soldiers too brave or too stupid to flee. Now the battle itself had become an example, a show of force. If this was what the Emperor's children did to the enemy, in the Phoenicians' name, then what horrors would they bring to bear against the sons of Horus? Garrick's men had fallen back, forming up their defences, readying themselves for the inevitable confrontation. If they could not kill him within, trapped by the rock and steel of the fortress maze, then they knew they would regroup and bring their might to bear. A final thrust of the spear.
Perhaps it is all in futility. The Emperor, the War Master, feasting on the galaxy's scraps, as though their victory will be absolute and eternal. Only the gods endure. Their designs have been cut into the universe's flesh since time out of mind, and we have only just learned. There were lessons and warnings in Old Night, and we burned them rather than accept the truth.
Truth, lies, none of it truly mattered to him any longer. Eidolon was beyond such things. All that mattered was the challenge. Life, such as it remained to him, was struggle and pain. He had been found wanting once, and he would never succumb again. He had been tested, over and over. Istvan, Prismatica, Aedris, the Kalium Gate, Corvia, and beyond them. Battles beyond count, wars fought for Primarch and War Master, for himself alone and for the honour and glory of the Legion. It was all fleeting, transient, pointless in the grand scheme. Artillery detonated somewhere above, casting mad shadows as the world shook and then realigned. The stars were gone, dead, swallowed by the fury and cacophony of the war. Even now, he was certain, commands would be winging their way from squad to squad, realigning the front lines in the newborn conflict. Allies of convenience would be steadily becoming enemies. It had been inevitable, he knew. The barbarian filth could not be trusted to restrain their baser natures. The urges and desires of the Third were far beyond anything that Garrick's rabble could conceive of. They were things now understood to be sacred. He would have unleashed his own men before long, given them leave to hunt and prey, to daub the cities with the blood of friend and foe alike. Betrayal was its own reward, yet the trap had sprung too soon, and he suspected the hand that had forced it.
Malacrus.
The suspicion grew to surety as he climbed over the smouldering heap of rubble and vaulted down, back into Liberation Square. Other elements of the Legion had already begun to gather, tearing at the statuary with hooked blades and burning them to slag with melter guns. All fell silent as Eidolon strode back into the square. Turning his hammer repeatedly in one hand, he struck the very figure of a conquering warlord, stained with blood and soot. Ashes had begun to fall all around them, smearing everything in a fine layer of greasy human remains. The exaggerated colours of the Third Legion's armour had become muted, almost grey. They stood amidst the ruins of their old achievement like ghosts, echoes of what they had been. Perhaps once they would have been afraid of what they were becoming. Yet now they embraced it without fear or doubt. "My lord!" Malacrus shouted across the square. Striding through the carnage, slivers of human meat trailing from his claws, grinned broadly and flourished a bow.
"We have prepared quite the spectacle for you."
Eidolon nodded absently, looking around, scanning from face to face. Vociferon was panting, exertion writ across his features, either from the desperate rush to the square or from the frenzy of combat. Plegwell was placid, collected, blissful as he surveyed the carnage. Bodies were being dragged out in front of him. A parade of mortal victims alongside the sons of Horus. A giant's corpse had already been mutilated, limbs torn free, entrails hanging loose beneath the cracked ruin of breastplate and the shattered mass of his fused ribs. Malachus was laughing, posturing, preening. Eidolon could taste bile in his throat, his windpipe still contracting with the effort of the last psychosonic screams. He stepped forward, let the hammer's haft slide down his grip, and rested it on the shattered dais.
Your work?
He asked, gesturing about him.
The Sons of Horus.
Malachus blinked, like a surprised reptile tilting its head.
Your orders were...
Eidolon's fist swung around and caught Malachus in the cheek, knocking him back. Blood graced his knuckles, and he swung again. Again, blows rained down upon the other warrior, forcing him to one knee. Rings and jeweled studs tumbled free in a rain of despoiled finery, clattering and jangling amidst the spilled blood. Eidolon seized Malachus by the throat and hefted him up, bringing the warp and sharpened fingertips of his other hand down the captain's melted features, gouging 3 lines upon his face.
You fool,
Eidolon snapped.
You impetuous cur.
You... Malachus slurred.
You bade me. You gave the order.
Blood ran freely from his split lips and splintered teeth. He forced a shattered smile and then spat, heaving gobbets of blood, his shoulders shaking with pleasure.
You were the voice in my ear, Lord Commander. You were the call to arms, to slaughter them all and let Slanesh feast on who they wished. You stood before me and threw forth your arms and told me to slay them all.
I heard it too, Vociferon said quietly. Eidolon dropped Malachus to the ground and turned about. Striding towards the swordsman, he felt for just a moment that he might rend the man apart with his bare hands. Your voice, my lord, telling me to burn it all to ashes, to tear the world to pieces. He paused and turned his gaze to the fallen figure of his rival. I ignored it, though. I could not raise you on the Vox. There was no clarity, no chain of command. He sniffed. I was not enough of a fool to be waylaid by the deceptions of demons. Malachus hissed through broken teeth.
Better to listen to the voice of the gods than deny them. Why should we restrain ourselves? There are passions and pleasures beyond number, merely waiting to be born.
Be silent, whelp, Plegwin intoned, his voice thrumming with lethal resonances. He hefted his great weapon, the dire-singing instrument of ruin, and directed it at Malachus's prone form. I have heard the call and ignored it, as the falsehood it is. I am the ruin singer. It is for me to pass the true notes from out of the eternal song. A tower exploded somewhere behind him, haloing Til Plegwa in fire and fury. Masonry raised down, crushing the abandoned bodies of the wallsmen, mutilating the defeated further. They were all but forgotten now, in the face of the new enemy, but Eidolon almost found it within himself to pity them. When the old was swept away and the past was ashes, then the future could be born from out of history's charnel pit. There were few more fitting midwives to such things than the Third Legion. These men and women were mere fodder for that destiny.
You are all sons of the Phoenician,
Eidolon growled.
Our origins and our philosophies may be disparate, but here and now, all that matters is showing the enemy our strength. They think themselves our betters, but they are arrogant barbarians. The Sons of Horus will forever look down on us as the stunted legion they had to mother. We will prove them that we are more than that blighted beginning. We are warriors of the Third Legion, of the Third Millennial. None are our equal.
They were all listening now. Factions forgotten, allegiances resharpened in this, the appointed hour. It was an oath of moment after a fashion, in the old way. Then they had sworn themselves to their brothers and their father, to a distant emperor and the dreams they had called unity, to a great crusade that was increasingly outside their control, to a council of mortal bureaucrats and a hierarchy of liars and fools.
I have seen the caliber of our enemy,
Eidolon laughed.
A horde of savages, no different to the Khan's rabble. These Chthonians think themselves are better because their master was first found.
He strode back towards Gloria Eterna and hefted the weapon, holding it high. The hammer's gilding glimmered in the flame light, resonating strength even with its power field disarmed.
They suppose us to be weak and divided. Imagine us to be mindless monsters, devoid of purpose. Slaves to our impulses.
Eidolon glared down at Malachus as he began to scramble back to his feet, blood still running over his chin and staining his gorget.
We will prove them wrong. We shall play them at their own game, challenging their surety and breaking their resolve. They favor their precious spear tip.
Eidolon said, laughing.
We shall meet them like with like.
I have to say, I'm really enjoying... I think it's interesting seeing how each of his lieutenants responds to what's going on. I also never really expected Eidolon to be as charismatic as he is. Like, I think this is his first feature as a primary character and not just like a villain antagonist. And I think that the way he's written here makes him seem like, yes, he's a really skilled warrior, a really skilled commander, and he knows how to resonate with his subordinates and lead his men. And I don't think that's something that's been really explored in Warhammer before. I'm not sure, though. I could be wrong. But then again, this is my first entry into Horus Heresy. But from what I've heard, what I've read, what I've seen online, everyone seems to think he's just this bumbling fool that just kind of fails upwards all the time. And I'm not saying maybe in the past he hasn't been that, but this is like, even though he's been dead and brought back to life, this feels like Eidolon at his peak. And it feels very much like Mark Collins is playing into that. Even broken and monstrous, he is also stronger than he's ever been. And I think it's interesting. I don't know if this is Fulgrim's magic or psychic powers in how they reshaped him, or this is the blessings of Slanesh that's enhancing him, or whatever it is. I just think that Mark Collins makes me really want to see more of Eidolon. And I hope this book does well. I know it didn't sell out. The limited edition copy didn't sell out for a good few weeks, when most limited edition copies of books like sell out almost instantly. I think it's because Eidolon is not the most beloved character. But this book really makes me want to see him in Warhammer 40,000, rallying the Legion for Fulgrim as his right hand. That's what I'm hoping we're going to see in the future in 2025 when we get that 40k release. I'm so excited for it. I'm really excited for it. So I guess we'll just have to keep exploring and keep seeing what's what. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you'll be around for the next chapter. There's less than half of the book left, and these chapters, for the most part, don't seem very long, if I want to be honest. So, I don't know. If I'm able to get through more than I planned today, I might end up doing multiple chapters a day, but I can't guarantee that. I probably won't be able to do that till probably next week. But from what's left of the book should be finished, and the whole book should be finished by the end of next week, I imagine. But I'm loving this. I want to find out more of Mark Collins' work. I think Mark Collins is a fantastic writer, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this book. One thing I have to say, the book isn't very long, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, frankly, I feel like longer books tend to be a bit more draining as far as reads go, but this is just over 200 pages of like actual book, not counting the acknowledgements and all that stuff. I suppose the downside of having a shorter story is that it leaves you wanting more, and I feel like that's what's going to happen as I get to the end of this. I think I'm going to want more. I think I'm going to want more Eidolon and more Emperor's Children. But that's how I've kind of felt reading every book about the Emperor's Children. I don't know, there's something about them that I think quite resonates with me. They're not the best Legion. They're villainous characters. They're bastards and evil. But they're so much fun. Anyway, do the whole social media stuff. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me on Twitch or on socials like Blue Sky and Facebook if you like memes. Follow me on Twitch if you want to hang out and play video games. We do video game streams every Thursday with chat. I do hobby painting streams sometimes. You might, if you're watching this on YouTube, which you should be. I don't know where else you'd be watching it. you'll probably see me post miniatures I've painted on stream, and occasionally some off-stream stuff. I don't really know what I'm supposed to use YouTube stories for, but that's kind of mostly it. Anyway, I'll see you next time. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are in the world. Mwah.